I wish every camping trip was 80 degrees and sunny, but the weather doesn't always cooperate. Just because the clouds feel like sharing doesn't mean your trip is a complete washout, if you come prepared. Today I'll share how I stay dry in a downpour in this week's Camping Gear with the Yankee Camper, Rain Gear.
Into every life a little rain must fall.
That was written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in his 1841 poem, The Rainy Day. No matter how hard you might try, there's always a chance that a little rain will interrupt your camping trip. I think Calvin's dad had the right approach. With the appropriate attitude and good gear, a little rain won't make that much difference.
You can't always plan for perfect weather when you go out camping, but you can be prepared.
Back in 2022, I was camping in August when an offshore storm intensified into a rare summer nor'easter while I was roughing it in Baxter State Park in northern Maine. The drenching rain made everything in my screenhouse wet, including a roll of paper towels, which I dried sheet by sheet near the fire. Sometimes you need to improvise, and that storm broke a weeks-long drought in Maine. My old tent held up well despite the winds, but that was the last time I used it after having to repair the zippers again. It was more than 40 years old, so I guess it was time. My Jeep only had a bikini top, but I had my rain suit, plenty of dry fire starter, and a cozy place to sleep. The weather passed that night, and the rest of the trip was pleasant and summer-like. Foul weather doesn't have to stop you from getting outside, but be sure to check the conditions. I checked several sources before leaving and now carry a portable radio with weather frequencies, so I receive updates out in the field. Being forewarned is being forearmed, or something like that. My little gully washer, however, is nothing compared to Hurricane Diane, which dropped over 19 inches of rain in 1955. That's the most from one storm in the Northeast. It would be over 15 feet of snow in the winter. But that wasn't the worst storm around here, though. Growing up in the 70s, older folks were still talking about the Great Hurricane of 1938. It dropped between 10 and 17 inches of rain, but the winds were sustained at 121 miles per hour with gusts recorded over 186. This caused as much as a 25-foot storm surge in some locations, with a peak wave height of 50 feet in Gloucester. The devastation was incredible, with nearly 9,000 buildings destroyed and another 15,000 damaged. Nearly 6,000 boats were either destroyed or damaged, not including the fishing fleets, which added an additional nearly 6,000 vessels to that number. Some 1,700 people were injured, and more than 560 people were killed. The behemoth started off the coast of Africa in the early part of September and gathered steam uninterrupted, drawing energy from the warm waters of the Gulf Stream to become a Category 5. Despite having lost some of its punch to a Category 3 when it slammed into the southern coast of Long Island on the 21st, the eastern side continued to pummel the New England coastline. This is considered the worst storm in New England history, with around 63,000 people being left without a home and, in today's money, around $14 billion in losses. The other top four are the twins, Hurricanes Edna and Carol of 1954, Diane, as previously mentioned, of 1955, and Bob in 1991. I was alive for Bob, living in northern Massachusetts. I wasn't impressed. Honorable mention goes to Superstorm Sandy in 2012. This caused much more devastation south of New York than up here. Also deserving of honorable mention is the colonial hurricane of 1635. Governor William Bradford of Plymouth Plantation and Governor John Winthrop of the Massachusetts Bay Colony both recorded that the storm was violent with an abundance of rain. Reverend Richard Mather, the father and grandfather of Reverends Increase and Cotton, respectively, was aboard the James with his family, coming from England, when their ship was caught just off the Isles of Shoals. The winds were driving them to the craggy coastline when suddenly it shifted and sent them in a different direction, avoiding the jagged rocks. Despite having lost all their sail and 3 anchors, all 100+ passengers landed in Boston shortly after. It's interesting, I think, that had the wind not shifted, the New England colony might have been deprived of two of the nation's earliest influencers and their Calvinist Puritan beliefs. The same cannot be said for those aboard the Watch and Wait out of Ipswich, Massachusetts. The small craft launched with 23 aboard, 19 passengers and 4 crewmen, to bring the Reverend John Avery and his family to the new parish at Marblehead. Accompanying him was his 46-year-old cousin, Anthony Thatcher, who was bringing with him 4 of his 5 children, as well as his second wife of 6 weeks, Elizabeth. As the pinnace came round the eastern tip of Cape Ann at what is now Loblolly Cove, it was exposed to the fierce winds blowing from the southwest. The crew attempted to drop anchor, but the gales were too strong, and the watercraft broke from her cable toward what is known as Crackwood Ledge, a submerged rock formation off the coast. A powerful wave pushed Thatcher and his daughter, as well as Avery and his son, out of the boat onto the rocks just below the surface. A second wave drove the ship onto those rocks, splintering it, casting all aboard into the angry sea and sweeping the 4 from the ledge. The surge pushed Thatcher toward a nearby spit of land rising above the Atlantic. He washed ashore, but all his children drowned. Elizabeth also managed to get to the island, where they spent 2 days before being rescued. They were the only survivors. As recompense for the loss of his family, Thatcher received, in addition to some financial support, a grant of the island that had given him refuge. That land off Rockport maintains that name today and is iconic for the 2 lighthouses at either end, warning sailors of the dangerous rock ledge that claimed this and numerous other ships and lives. Now you know. After all that, I could use a cup of Java.
I hope you're enjoying this video, and thank you for watching, but I don't get any compensation for this. However, if you'd like, you could buy me a cup of coffee. I'll put the link in the description down below. Thank you. Wouldn't it be great if it only rained at night? Wet weather can make or break a great vacation. And if you're prepared, you'll be in that much better shape. So let me show you what I have. This is a full rain suit. As you can see, it compacts down pretty small, and it includes pants and a jacket. I'll open it up. This is the rain jacket, and it's got a full hood. And these are the rain trousers. At the base, it's got Velcro and a zipper. That just makes it easier to get into and out of in the wet weather without having to take your shoes off. I don't wear the rain pants very often, but if it's a dousing rain, it's great to have. The rain jacket I wear relatively often, And the hood's a nice thing to have. It'll keep the rain off the back of your neck. This one I've had for a number of years. It was actually bought for me as a Christmas present. And I have another one that's similar that I use on my motorcycle. If you're going to be outdoors on a regular basis, invest in a good quality rain suit. It'll pay for itself after the first storm. I don't use it every time I go out, but I always carry it with me just in case. And the jacket can double as a windbreaker if it gets a little bit cool. Because of that, consider buying a neutral color. Well, orange or yellow are great to be able to be seen. If you want to wear it as an outer shell, you won't attract so much attention. The next rain gear item that I have is a regular poncho. This is just neoprene. It opens up very large, but as you can see, it also has a hood. To put this on, there are some snaps along the edge. You just simply put your arms through like that. Pull it up over the top, and you've got a decent bit of rain gear kit that'll help keep the rain off you, keep you a little bit dry, prevent you from getting too cold. One of the nice things about having a poncho like this is that you can use it as an emergency shelter if you have to. It's got grommets in the corners, just carry a little bit of rope and you can tie it off to a tree and be able to create a temporary shelter to be out of the wind and some of the rain. If you did need to use this as a shelter, you can just draw the strings in tight and that will help close up the hole where your head goes. Just like so. I've got a few more that I'd like to share with you, but first, watch this segment.
Your rain gear's yellow. No, it's not afraid of getting wet. Did you know that if you boil light-colored sailcloth in linseed oil, it turns a shade of mustard? Yep, the yellow plastic rain slicker is a nod to the early oilskins worn by sailors. The sailors took old worn sails, treated them with flax oil to make them waterproof, and sewed them into trousers and jackets to keep dry in foul weather. Headgear was often a hood. The same cape off which Thatcher was shipwrecked was named for the mother of King Charles I, Anne of Denmark. The fishermen of this area would go a-fishing on their schooners for multiple days, but felt that the centuries-old hood limited their ability to use peripheral vision in a storm. The old salts fashioned a hat with a brim that could be turned up in the front, eliminating visual obstruction, and was elongated in the back to prevent water from running down one's neck. The cap was flannel-lined and incorporated an air covering against the cold winter blasts, but could be tucked up inside if not necessary. Ties kept the top firmly in place during the gales. This was never a fashion statement, but a practical Yankee solution to a blustery problem. The Gloucestermen would head out around 75 miles to George's Bank, where the haddock, cod, and flounder were. I've seen that the hat's name, the Cape Ann Sou'wester, comes from the winds and rain common in the British Isles, but the New England fishermen didn't venture that far, so that seems wrong. Although it's the same origin as those narky thunderheads, a storm that forms off Africa and heads east, being fed by the warmer water of the Caribbean, will often turn northeast along the east coast of the United States. As it moves along the counterclockwise rotation of a storm creates higher winds on the right side. Should it take a more easterly track, it will indeed wind up over the UK. But if the low pressure system gets caught and stalls over the Gulf of Maine, the ferocity of the tempest will pound Georgia's bank with downpours and wind gusts blowing from the southwest. The seafarers knew that if the clouds were coming from that direction, it was time to batten down the hatches. Over time, the iconic look became synonymous with Doryman. In 1901, Gloucester painter Augustus W. Buehler created the image of a man standing steadfastly at the helm, titled "The Man at the Wheel." This represented the grit of those that set out to bring in the silver from the sea, so much so that when the Slade Gorton Company was looking for an image to represent their fish in 1905, they purchased the painting and set it as their logo. In 1953, the renamed Gorton Pew Fisheries introduced frozen fish sticks to the world, earning the Parents Magazine seal of approval. It helped to cement the image of the man donning a sou'wester while standing at the ship's wheel into American iconography. As a side note, Birdseye, also of Gloucester, likewise introduced fish sticks that same year, but theirs is a story for another time. When the city, for its 300th anniversary in 1923, was looking to honor their heritage and remember the men lost to the sea, that symbol of the steadfast helmsman was recognized by artist Leonard Krask and was placed alongside Gloucester Harbor in 1925. The bronze edifice of a seaman in oilskins and a sou'wester is visited by thousands of people from all over the world, paying homage to "they that go down to the sea in ships." Now you know. But what do you do if you don't own foul weather gear?
Now this may seem obvious, but consider carrying an umbrella. This is just a small portable one. It opens to a fairly decent size. And if you're caught out in the rain, this will certainly help to keep you a little bit dry. Folding it back up, just pull it down till it locks. Tighten it and slip it back inside its nice little neoprene bag. The other type is a little more traditional. This doesn't quite fit in a backpack, but I keep this down between the seats in the car. Again, more traditional, about the same size. It doesn't really take up that much space, and it lives between the passenger seat and the console in my Jeep. I recommend getting an umbrella and keeping it exclusively for your camping gear or your automobile. That way there, you'll always have it available, you'll know where it is, you won't be searching for it, as opposed to one that you keep for all purposes. Leave that one in the house so that you can grab it when you need it from home. Sometimes when you're out at events, there's giveaways. This is a giveaway rain poncho. Comes in a little plastic bag, and it was actually given away by one of the sponsors of the Seaplane Pilots Association fly-in this weekend. This one I've had for a while, but I keep this in my camp equipment at all times. I'll share a little story. When I was down in Florida at an aviation event, it was raining buckets. And I had something like this that I was able to give to one of the gentlemen who was out driving around in the carts, and he drove me back to my next location. Sure beats walking in the rain. Now, oftentimes you won't get a nice one like this. You'll get one like this. This one is a small folded one, And I'm not going to unfold it because once you open these up, you can't put them back together. But as you can see, that's fairly thin, very small, doesn't take up a lot of room. And if you can't get one of these, keep an eye out for one of these. You can buy these, they're fairly inexpensive. If you can't get one as a giveaway, take a look at your dollar discount stores. They often have something similar to this, very short money, and it's a good thing to have in an emergency. So let's say you've planned poorly and you're out and the rain falls. What are you going to do? Well, I've done this in the past and I don't recommend it, but it works in a pinch. This is just a trash bag. You just find the center of the bottom and put a little tiny hole in it. Expand it enough to get your head through. Do the same on the sides. This won't win you any fashion contests, but it will keep your core dry and help prevent hypothermia. This is the last resort, however, because that means you're telling everybody that you didn't pay attention to the rest of this video. In the meantime, get outside, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you like the content that my channel is putting out. Also, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. I try to put out a video about every week on the camping gear that I use. In places around New England where camping is still relatively inexpensive to camp. And in my Making a Mess series, I put together recipes using shelf-stable ingredients which I cook in the field in my mess kit.